For almost all of recorded history, the world's biggest economies were not in the West at all. Watch 2,000 years of the world economy unfold. First, how do you compare ancient coins with modern money? You cannot just use exchange rates. So economists use purchasing power, roughly what each economy's money could actually buy at home. And instead of raw totals, we will track each power's share of the entire world economy. And one big warning: for most of history, having the largest economy simply meant having the most people working the land, not being the richest or most advanced per person. Figures before the modern age, and for closed economies like the Soviet Union, are rough reconstructions. So watch the big picture, not the exact numbers. 2,000 years ago, the world's wealth lay in the East. India and China led the world, not because each person was rich, but because they had the most people, farming the most land, dwarfing even the Roman heartland of Italy. 1,000 years later, nothing has changed at the top. India and China still lead the world, while Europe, broken into small feudal kingdoms, remains an economic backwater. Under the Song dynasty, China enjoys an economic miracle of paper money, iron and bustling trade, while India stays rich and Europe slumbers on. Under the vast Mongol Empire, trade flows along the Silk Road as never before. China remains the world's largest economy, India stays immensely rich, and Europe is still a quilt of tiny realms. After the Black Death and the Mongol storms have passed, Ming China and India recover their place at the top, while in Europe, the Italian city-states stir with the first light of the Renaissance. By 1500, China's Ming dynasty has edged ahead, and India is close behind. Together, these two giants make up well over half of everything produced on Earth. China pulls firmly ahead. Silk, tea, and porcelain flow out of Asia, and silver from the new Spanish mines of the Americas flows in to pay for it all. On the eve of the modern age, Mughal India is the single richest economy on Earth, its weavers clothing much of the world. India and China together are roughly half the global economy. For 17 centuries, the logic was simple. The most people, the most farms, and the finest workshops were in Asia. India's cotton and China's silk and porcelain were luxuries the whole world paid for. Still, the East leads. China under the king and India under the Mughals tower over a Europe that is only just beginning to stir with new machines and new ideas. By 1820, King China is staggering in scale, making up nearly a third of the entire world economy. India is second. Europe and a tiny young America are still far behind. And then, in one small rainy island, everything changes. Coal, steam, and the factory let Britain produce more with machines than whole nations could by hand. The world is about to be turned upside down. China is still, just barely, the largest economy on Earth. But the First Opium War has cracked it open, and industrial Britain, with its mills and railways, is closing the gap at frightening speed. The gap explodes open. Britain, the workshop of the world, and a fast-rising United States rocket up the table, while a China gutted by war and a colonized India slide into a long decline. It was not only machines. Gunboats forced China's ports open in the Opium Wars, and British rule turned India from the world's workshop into a captive market. The world's oldest economic giants were broken. And the moment finally comes. After nearly 2,000 years in which the title belonged to Asia, a booming, industrializing United States edges past a declining China to lead the world. By 1900, the new champion is clear. The United States, fed by immigration, oil, and steel, has quietly become the largest economy on the planet, a position it will hold for over a century. On the eve of the First World War, America stands far out in front, with Germany and Britain battling for Europe's lead. The old Asian giants have fallen to the middle of the pack. The Roaring Twenties make the United States richer than any nation in history, its factories and stock market booming, just as the Great Depression is about to strike. The Great Depression scrambles the order. As the democracies struggle to recover, Stalin's brutal 5-year plans drive the Soviet Union up the table, though for a closed economy like his, these numbers are more educated guess than hard fact. 2 world wars reshape the board. America's untouched industry races ahead, the Soviet Union rises as a new industrial power, and Germany rearms for catastrophe. After the war, America stands alone, producing more than a quarter of everything on Earth. The Soviet Union is a distant second, and a war-torn Asia is a shadow of its former self. This was America's golden age. Detroit's assembly lines, suburbs, and superhighways made the United States the richest society the world had ever seen, and the dollar became the money of the world. The Cold War is now an economic contest. The Soviet Union pours everything into heavy industry to chase America, while a quietly rebuilding Japan and West Germany begin their own miracles. Japan's miracle accelerates, its factories flooding the world with cars and electronics, blowing past the European powers, while the once feared Soviet economy quietly begins to stall. By the 1970s, the great surprise is Japan. Rising from the ashes of war, it powers past the European nations to become the world's number 2 for a single country. By 1980, the United States is still far in front, but Japan's miracle is in full roar. The Soviet Union strains to keep up, and China has only just begun to open its doors. At its peak, Japan's boom is so fierce that some fear it will overtake America itself. But the Soviet Union is crumbling, and far down the table, a sleeping giant has just begun to stir. The Soviet Union is gone, Japan's bubble has burst, and the sleeping giant is now wide awake. In a single generation, China has climbed from nowhere to the world's number 2. Now China's rise is simply unstoppable. As the workshop of the world once again, it doubles its economy every few years and pulls clear into second place behind the United States. By 2008, China is breathing down America's neck, and India has surged into the top 3. The center of the world economy is racing back toward Asia, where it began. In 1978, China began to open up, and a fishing town called Shenzhen became a city of millions in a few decades. The workshop of the world had come home to Asia. And then, measured by purchasing power, it happens. For the first time since the 1880s, China overtakes the United States to become the largest economy on Earth once again. China's lead widens, and the gap between the old Western powers and the rising Asian economies grows starker with every passing year. Today China leads, America is a close second, and India has stormed into third, growing faster than them both. After a 2-century detour through the West, the world economy looks once again a lot like it did in the year 1. For 1800 years, Asia was the heart of the world economy. The West's reign has so far lasted barely 2 centuries. So who do you think will lead the world in the year 2100? Tell me below.